All right, welcome back to the Daily Fantasy Flex podcast. It is Tuesday night. Yes, it is some night on the week.
Yeah.
Tuesday night. Yeah, Tuesday night. We're talking the Wednesday main slate. We got a split slate tomorrow. The games start pretty early at 12:35. There's 15 games throughout the day. We have some early, and then we have 7 games in the late slate, or the main slate, rather, starting at 7 o'clock Eastern time. That is the slate that we are going to be discussing, this 7:05 p.m. Eastern Time main slate on Wednesday. I am here with a special new guest. His name is Brandon Hopper. He has started writing for us at FantasyLabs. He has written some stuff and is also contributing to our Plays of the Day article and all sorts of stuff. And is now joining the podcast.
Yeah.
Podcaster on FantasyLabs. Brandon, what's up, man?
Yeah, not much. Hey, thanks for having me. I'm pumped to be here. I'm excited to chat about this slate tomorrow. And to call myself a podcaster, FantasyLabs.
You are a podcaster, yeah. Officially, as of now.
That now for like 2 minutes on this website. I'll take it.
Yeah. And so, actually, this is way off topic, but isn't it true? I'm going to sound really dumb here. That if you attend one class at a university, you're an alumnus.
I don't see why not. I mean, What's that make you? How many schools did you attend?
Just
6.
One.
Oh, wow.
One college. Yeah.
That's fine.
So I mean, yeah, and I was there for years, but I was just thinking that just the fact that you've been podcasting for 30 seconds, you are a official podcaster.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it on my Twitter right when we're done.
Yeah, and resume, and it should probably lead everything that you do.
Yeah.
FantasyLabs podcaster. So congrats on that. Big night for you. So we're going to talk this MLB Wednesday slate. Pretty interesting slate, actually. We got some interesting pitchers to talk about, and we obviously have some elite bats. We have Toronto. Blue Jays are projected to score a lot of runs because they're at Toronto, which we know is a batter's park. They disappointed tonight, not scoring as many as we thought. Donaldson against a lefty, Bautista against a lefty wasn't quite as exciting as everyone was projecting it to be, but we're back tomorrow in Toronto. So let's run through the slate. So we'll start kind of just talking through Vegas real quick. The top teams, obviously we mentioned Toronto. They're implied at 4.9 runs, and then going down just a little bit, we have Baltimore at 4.5. Houston at 4.4, and then sort of on the low end, we have Philly, the Dodgers, and the Diamondbacks all at 3.3. So fairly good distribution there, and I think it's a good slate. I sort of like these sort of in between slates. Are you a big slate guy, or do you like sort of the smaller ones where it's sort of easier to digest?
Yeah, I kind of like the smaller ones, and something I'm trying to get into lately is maybe playing some of the split slate or the late. If I have a team I like that might not be the highest projected run total in that slate, I'm really starting to look at that and see where I can pick my spots instead of trying to digest a 15-gamer that maybe I'm right on some stuff, but I'm not right to the top of the leaderboard. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I'm excited for the 7-gamer tomorrow.
Yeah, I've actually always liked the strategy. I don't necessarily do it a ton, just because I play more tournaments than cash. But I've heard some people who are cash players, especially starting off. I think it's sort of an interesting strategy. We have these big slates where it's like a 15-game slate, but then on DraftKings they'll break it up and they'll have a turbo or a sort of an in-between slate, then a late slate where it breaks it up as a little less games. And I think a lot of people will build lineups for the big slate. So they'll build lineups for the 15 gamers, and then they'll say, oh, yeah, I still got a couple slates. I can win some money. So then they'll build a cash lineup for the sort of turbo slate and then the later slate. But obviously they're putting a lot less time into it because they only have like 20 minutes before the next one starts. So they spent all day researching that slate. They didn't really research the sort of the nuances of the middle slate. So I know some people who have been really profitable just like skipping the first slate, the big one, and focusing all their time into the nuances of that middle slate and sort of taking advantage of the fact that people make quick lineups that are usually suboptimal. So I actually think it's a really interesting strategy to do that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I was thinking that sort of on that topic that when a guy when someone has a lineup and it's struggling early and it's for the 15-game slate, the main slate, and they want action, and they know they're already out of the main one. You know, they're not going to win. Their pitcher threw a -9 or something. They're gonna try to bust out a lineup for that late one, and if you've already put your time into that slate, I mean, there's some fish, especially I think at the lower levels. I think the pros, they know better than to chase their losses, but I think at the lower levels, I totally agree.
Yeah, some of these later slates that when people are chasing because they're losing or their pitcher goes down or something like that. I love it in NFL, like that primetime slate on Sunday night. People get past the afternoon games, they're like, "Oh crap, I suck. My lineup just didn't go off," and then they just like throw so much into that primetime lineup without really doing research. It is an interesting strategy for sure. And so I do think we have an interesting day tomorrow. Usually on these Wednesday slates, we don't have split slates, but we do tomorrow. So I think it's going to be interesting. We'll have the breakdown tomorrow morning that John Daigle writes, and that'll be for the early and later slates. He's going to cover all the games, and obviously we're going to cover just the night slate. So let's get into it. Let's talk. We'll go through our usual segments, and the first one is going to be going over two intriguing pitchers. So I'll let you go first, Brandon, since you are our new guest podcaster. Who are your two intriguing pitchers and why?
All right. So first of all, I'll say that I've got two guys, and there's one I really like, and then there's one that might make a lot of people laugh, but it's strictly tournament contrarian. The first guy I really like is Drew Smyly. I don't know why he's so cheap on FanDuel. He's 8,700. I think he's 10-9 on DraftKings. He's just too cheap. His last 4 games, he's been at 8,700 on FanDuel.
He hasn't budged,
He hasn't budged. He's passed his expectations on all of them. A positive 9.59 plus 9 in those starts, and I'll take that. To go with that, he's got an 89 park rating tomorrow. The bargain rating, of course, I mentioned is 98%, and he's a favorite to win. He's minus 160. Which is always nice if you can get that added 12 on FanDuel at the end of the night when you're trying to sneak up the leaderboard. 11 pro trends to go with that. So he can strike people out. He's got 10.5, and the Dodgers are okay. They don't strike out too much against lefties, so it's not great. But I think we're going to get him at low ownership, which is always nice in the tournament. I think a lot of people are going to gravitate to Steven Matz, because he's going against the Braves and he's only $300 more. And I think a lot of people are going to be at that level because all you've got in this slate is Jose Fernandez, as far as the high price guys at FanDuel. So I think we'll get them. I think we'll get them relatively low. I did see a little bit of early line movement to favor Smyly. But it's so early. I don't know if we give any credence to that or if that's just noise. So I like Smyly a lot tomorrow. He'll be in a lot of my lineups. The other guy, and don't laugh at me here, Bryan, but Sabathia. It's a really contrarian move, and it's just tournaments. Don't play him in your cash games. He's throwing the ball slower than probably in the last 15 years. I think it was at like 87 miles per hour. You can probably throw faster than that, right, Bryan?
Yeah, of course.
Definitely. Yeah. But opponents they're struggling to square him up. Hard hits. They're only hitting the ball hard 12% of the time, which is down from 28%. Exit velocity is 83 miles per hour. And he's throwing more strikes over his last 3 starts than the previous year. So he's pounding the zone. I don't see him getting a whole lot of strikeouts, which, that limits his upside for sure. But he's got some things working for him. So to go with the advanced stats, Baltimore strikes out 28% of the time against lefties. So that's a solid number. It's the second most of this slate against handedness, that they're going to face tomorrow. Plus, he's a small dog. I think Sabathia is going to be less than 1% owned. Well, given that it's a small slate, less than 5% owned.
Yeah, for sure.
He's an interesting play. I definitely prefer Smiley, but Sabathia, he's worth a look in tournaments for sure.
Yeah, and I mean that's interesting. Yeah, I mean I like the way that we structure our podcast where we have two intriguing pitchers. It's not necessarily who's going to be the two best pitchers of the night, because we do want to structure it where we can have people pick a guy who's intriguing for whatever reason. Maybe it's not a guy that you would even take. Maybe it is a guy you would take. I don't know, but yeah, I do think the advanced stats that you point out are interesting. You know, the hard hit percentage, I do think is something that you can't just dismiss. I'm not sure if I have the stones to take him, but you're right. I mean, it does stick out, and I think it's interesting. Maybe something I need to look into just a little bit more. My two guys that I'm going to talk about here, the first guy I'm going to mention is Jose Fernandez. I mean, I don't think it's crazy to think that he's sort of just the easy sort of play tomorrow. I do think it's going to be a little harder to take him over Smiley on FanDuel, where Smiley, you're right, is just so priced down. On DK, Smiley is up there at 10.9, so he is still cheaper than Fernandez, but it's not quite as drastic as the difference between them on FanDuel. So I think Fernandez is sort of the clear option on DraftKings, and I think probably on FanDuel too. He probably has maybe the highest upside still. I think he's an elite pitcher. If you look at his K9, obviously that's high. It's 11.5. 9.1. He's got a lot of pro trends as well. He's got a positive umpire, which Smiley does too. So if we're sort of comparing them, they're right there as well. One thing that does stand out to me, even though for Smiley it does as well, he's playing in Miami, which we know is a pitcher's park. Just really long and hard for guys to get it out and get out of the park there. He is one of the biggest favorites on the board. Looks like Leak is the biggest favorite. St. Louis against Philly at 172 right now, but Jose is right there at minus 170. So I think he is really safe tomorrow, and sort of the guy if you want to pay up for pitching and sort of know that you're locking in a guy who is going to not hurt you. I think Fernandez is a good option, and I think actually the Fernandez-Smiley debate is really intriguing in tournaments, and I'm actually going to get into that in my bowl call today. So I'll hint at and tease at that, but I will
don't give it away yet. Don't give it away.
You gotta listen
I really like him too. I mean, I wrote about him last week in my On the Contrary article that he's struggled this year, and people are shying away from that, especially with the big salary. So I see a lot of people loading up on bats tomorrow in this slate and paying down for a guy like Mott's. Maybe Smiley too, but certainly I think Mott's gets that. I don't think a lot of people are going to pay up for Fernandez. So I like your call. I mean, he's a good pitcher. He's probably going to be the highest point scorer for pitchers tomorrow. Mm-hmm. It's whether you want to pay that price or not.
Yeah, that's the tough thing. And I guess it will depend on roster construction and how that happens. The other guy that I'm looking at is Mike Fiers. He pitching for Houston against Minnesota. If you're sort of looking for guys who a little bit of a discount from the two top dogs and Smiley and Fernandez, but still has a little bit of K upside. You're sort of just looking at Fiers or Rodon. Those are really the only two guys that still have strikeout potential. And if I'm looking kind of between those two, they're semi-similar price points in the 8 to 7K range. I think Fiers just got a better matchup against Minnesota. The park is okay. It's got a 53 park rating, which is just sort of average. It's actually sort of a pitcher's park slate tomorrow. There's a lot of guys in really good parks. You got Fernandez and Smiley are in really good parks. Mike Leake's in a really good park. Yeah, Adam Morgan in a great park. Alex Wood, obviously, in Tampa is in a great park. So sort of interesting. So maybe that might lead you to pay up for pitching in tomorrow's slate, just sort of because of the park situation. But I do think Fiers is interesting if you're trying to get off of those two, or maybe if you want to take Fernandez but still have upside with your second pitcher but can't afford Smiley in the bats you like. I think he's interesting. He's a pretty sizable favorite at -5. Minus 151. They're implied at 3.7. Minnesota is. So not my favorite play in the world, but for this slate, like I can deal with rostering him.
Let me ask you this: on DraftKings, I play mainly FanDuel because I don't have time for the late swap. But on FanDuel, on DraftKings, are you willing to go with Smiley given his higher price and obviously the bargain rating that's so low?
Yeah, I mean, in tournaments, I actually like Smiley better on DraftKings than FanDuel, just because of ownership. FanDuel, it's just going to be impossible to get off Smiley in tournaments because he's so cheap. I mean, he's 87. He's probably be high 9K range. I think this is probably where he should be. So you're talking, he's probably about $1K underpriced, which is sort of ridiculous. He's been good this year. He's been consistent. He's been striking everyone out. So I just think that people are really going to have trouble getting off of him. So on DraftKings, I think that people are going to his ownership is going to be a little distributed among other players. So I'm much more willing to take him on DraftKings in tournaments, but sort of opposite in cash. I think I'm probably going to. I don't know. I'm okay with him really on either site for cash, but in tournaments, I would probably prefer him on DraftKings.
Yeah, no, you certainly make a good point. I mean, he's too easy to roster on FanDuel. I'm just hoping that other lower price guys in his range, like Mott's, take some of his ownership away.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, it's always tough.
I might have been looking at the wrong slate earlier. Is Mott's even on the? Is he in the all day? He is. He's in the all day. So me on that one. But
yeah, that's okay. Yeah, I've made that mistake too. It's sort of when you're flipping.
Hey, man, we all have to make errors in our first broadcast.
That's right. Yeah, this was your so okay, let's keep on going. So we usually go over a pitcher to fade. Who's your guy?
So yeah, my pitcher to fade is Ruby De La Rosa. He gets 7.3 strikeouts per game, so I didn't want to go bottom of the barrel with someone to fade because no one's going to take those guys anyways. But he's got a slate load 21% of the time. Miami strikes out a slate low 21% of the time. They've got an impressive WOBA 307 against righties. He does have the park factor, like you said. Like there's a lot of pitchers' parks in this slate, 91. But that's not enough to get him in my lineups on Wednesday. He's also got Greg Gibson behind the dish, which takes away 0.5 expected on his plus minus. I mean, he's a hitter's up for sure.
Yeah, I like that call. My guy that I am fading is Mike Leake. It's just sort of because of how the slate's set up. I think people are going to potentially look down from Fernandez and Smiley and try to see, okay, who else can I roster? Maybe I need a second pitcher on DraftKings, or maybe I want to get a sort of middle-of-the-road pitcher on FanDuel. Okay, let me look through who has a great matchup. Oh, Philly sucks. Okay, well, let me take Leake, who is a huge favorite, admitted. He's the biggest favorite on the board. He's at 172. And even Fernandez isn't that big of a favorite. And we know that Philly sucks. I mean, they have implied at 3.3 runs. They're sort of implied at that many low runs, regardless of pitcher. But if you sort of look at Leake's stats, I mean, he's got a 5.5 strikeout per nine. He has not pitched well this year. He's got a negative umpire. And I just really don't like the situation. I think people might gravitate towards him because of the money line and because it's Philly. And I think Philly could beat him up a little bit. And even still, I think you're not really getting much value. So he's kind of the easy fade for me. I'm not going to have any Leak.
That's a good call.
Cool. Let's move to bats. So we'll go over two elite bats, and then we'll hit on some value ones. I'll let you have the honors as well on this segment. Who are your two elite bats?
All right, so my two are Logan Forsythe. He's priced at $3,800 on FanDuel, and Josh Donaldson at $4,600 on FanDuel. We'll start with Forsythe. He's got really nice splits against lefties, and he hits leadoff, which is always nice. I can't imagine his ownership will be too high. He's not one of the sexy. He's not on one of the sexy teams with the high implied run totals. So I threw together a little trend using FantasyLabs trends. So leadoff hitters in games with a park factor of less than 15, when the player has strong ISO splits, are positive 2.56 in the plus minus category. Sample size is small, but the consistency is good. So I like that. Plus, he's got a bargain rating of 70% working for him, which isn't huge, but it's something to note. And he's got 6 pro trends, which is modest. Josh Donaldson, I like him a lot too. Obviously, he's with the Toronto game total 4.9 team total. It kind of goes against what I've been trying to do in tournaments. What I like to do in tournaments, or what I've been trying lately, is finding the guys who are reverse splits, right? So the righty who hits righties well, because the public, if they're just clicking through making a lineup, they're going to see righty, and they're going to move on to someone else. So it's something I've been trying to do with a little bit of success so far. Donaldson, that's not him. He's got bad splits against righties, but he's still in the top quartile of slugging percentage. Too many people are going to see the righty on righty and stay away from him, which is fine with me. He's got 9 pro trends on FanDuel, which is the most behind Darwin Barney, who might not even play. And his advanced stats are really strong too. He's hitting the ball 22 feet further in the last 15 days, 15% harder, more fly balls and line drives with a higher exit velocity. So I like him tomorrow. I think low ownership, and he's obviously got the upside.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what his ownership is on a smaller slate. His ownership is usually depressed against a righty, but I wonder if it'll still be high just because of that total in the smaller slate. But yeah, interesting to monitor for sure.
Low ownership, obviously, at a 15-game slate and a 7-game slate are two different things.
Yeah.
For sure.
But lower probably relative to where he would be if he was facing a lefty for sure.
Totally, yeah.
So sort of speaking of both of those points, the Blue Jays and a reverse splits guy, my first batter is Jose Bautista, Joey Bats. He is a reverse splits guy. He is a right-handed batter who hits right-handed pitchers better. So I really like that strategy. That's the strategy that I employ a lot as well. I like guys who are reverse splits guys, just because the public just doesn't. They sort of miss that. They whether they're on DraftKings or FanDuel, or sort of looking at the handedness on whatever site they're at. You're right. They sort of gravitate to the opposite hand, and so they miss the reverse splits guys. And Bautista he's an elite hitter against right-handed pitchers. He's hitting his ISO is 302 against them. Interestingly enough, he hit like almost all of his home runs. He hit a lot of home runs last year. Yeah. But a lot of them were against right-handed pitchers. So everyone really always sort of takes Toronto, especially against the lefty, especially at home. But Bautista has actually, historically been better, at least in the last, couple years of his career against right-handed pitchers, which I think maybe the public, obviously, people who play DFS and are sharp know that, but I think the public may not know it as much. So you could potentially have an edge in some of your cash games with that. The other batter I'm looking at is Justin Bour. He has really elite splits against right-handed pitchers as well. He's hitting 235. He has 235 ISO against right-handed pitchers. There's actually a guy that I love even more for this Miami team. Bour's projected to hit 5th behind Stanton for Miami. I really love this spot. We sort of talked about De La Rosa and his struggles just as a pitcher in general. And I think Miami could really take advantage, sort of even in a pitcher's park. I'm not really sure it matters in that sort of matchup. So Bour's my elite batter, but really there's a guy that I wanted to put in as my elite batter, but he's so cheap that I actually moved him into my value batter. So I will save him for 1 second because I'll kick to you and let you go over your value bets. And you say that you normally play FanDuel.
Yeah.
So I'm going to let you give 2 FanDuel values, and I'm going to give 2 DraftKings values.
Sounds good. So the first guy is Tim Beckham. I'm big on Tampa Bay tomorrow. And he's projected to get hit 7th, which isn't safe for cash games, right? But he's certainly a guy that can save you some salary cap. I think he's going to be in a position tomorrow to get an RBI single, and that's almost enough for a guy that costs $2,100. He hasn't shown upside at all this month, so there's that. But he does have some advanced stats working for him. He's hit the ball 39 feet further. He's still only 227 feet. He's hitting a lot of fly balls. His exit velocity is up. His hard percentage is up. Hard hit percentage. Wood doesn't give up a lot of home runs, so I'm not going to project that Beckham goes yard. That's not my bold call of the day. But he's got some things working for him. And like I said, I think the team's going to – I think the Rays are going to be a good play tomorrow. And I'm thinking that spills down to the 7 hole too. So I like him, and he costs $2,100. He's got some things working for him. My other one, I don't know if 3,000 is in the range of value bats.
We'll take it.
Yeah, we'll accept it on this one. Mark Teixeira, he's a sneaky pick. He's hitting the ball on the line lately, but it hasn't shown in the box score. His line drive percentage is at 37%, which is up from about low 20s. So he's $3K on FanDuel. It's a bargain rating of 99%. I mean, he's not going to fit the value bats at DraftKings, that's for sure. Park factor's at 78. He's not a stellar play either, but I do think he'll be pretty low owned. I don't think a lot of people are on the Yankees tomorrow. And I don't expect Chris Tillman to have a strong performance either. He scored 59 points in his last outing. Tillman's actually in my player model, Tillman's the lowest ranked pitcher. So I foresee Teixeira paying off his 3,000 salary.
Yeah, I love the Teixeira call, actually. He's got really nice power against right-handed pitchers. He got 288 ISO. And you're right, sort of the difference between his DraftKings and FanDuel salaries is pretty ridiculous. He's 4.7 on DraftKings.
Yeah.
Which is insanely priced up. He's projected to hit 4th for Texas against in a good matchup. I will give it that. So maybe he's more appropriately priced on DraftKings, maybe a little overpriced, but I think very underpriced on FanDuel. So I like that call a lot. My 2 value guys, I'm going to give you 2 for DraftKings. The guy that I mentioned that I wanted to put as my elite guy, but he was just cheap enough where I wanted to also mention him in the value bats, is Derek Dietrich. He's projected to lead off for Miami. He's been in their lineup ever since D. Gordon was suspended for Miami. He's been just crushing the ball lately. His hard hit percentage is at 40% in the last 15 days. Hitting a ton of fly balls. His distance is 221 feet, which is shown to be predictive. He's, sort of look at his recent game log. He had 2 games back-to-back where he had 18 points, 22 points. Has some power he can hit for home runs. The guy's he's 3,200 on DraftKings. On FanDuel, he's really cheap too. I think he's a value on both sides. Let me see where he is on FanDuel.
Yeah, he just went
20,
he's
29.
29.
Yeah.
Jumped up from about 21 the past couple of days. But, yeah, I mean, he's in a good spot. It's a good play.
Yeah, and he's got great splits. I mean, he's 245 ISO against right-handed pitchers, 527 slugging. I get that he's sort of a small sample size because he's been playing that long, but sort of everything sort of lines up for him. So I really like that play. Also, just sort of not off topic, but just sort of a quick aside, he does have dual eligibility on DraftKings. He's second baseman and third baseman, which I think is sort of intriguing. It lets you open up some potential roster construction and lets you be unique. I think one way to do that is, people might slate in Donaldson at third base and Dietrich at second base because you get power from both sides, but you can sort of get both in because Dietrich is cheap and Donaldson is expensive. I think an interesting play is to lock Dietrich in at third base and sort of pivot to a different second baseman, whether you want to go Forsythe or whether go Altuve or even Odor for Texas, sort of get on the other side of that Toronto game, but still a good park. I think that would open up some potential unique lineups just by being interesting in your roster construction. So something I'm looking at. I think he's an intriguing play for sure. The other guy I'm looking at is Joey Ricard. He's got a 222 ISO against left-handed pitchers. He's projected to lead off for Baltimore. I think that they are in a pretty interesting spot tomorrow. They're projected for 4.5 runs against CC. I get that people haven't been making contact. I made the pick before I knew your stat about the hard hit percentage with CC, but I guess I got to stick to my pick now. I can't back down now. So no. Hard. But even still, I mean, he is batting leadoff for a team that's projected to score 4.5 runs, and he's really cheap. He's cheap. I think on both sites he's 3-3 on DraftKings, on FanDuel. I think he's really cheap too. Yeah, he's 2,700 on FanDuel. So not a crazy bargain rating on either site, just because I think he's underpriced on both. But really good splits, and in a really good spot as far as his batting order spot and the Vegas line. So those are my two plays and guys that I think I'll have pretty good exposure to tomorrow. Cool. Let's keep on moving. We got a couple more segments. The next one we'll talk about is we're going to give a stack of the day, just a stack that intrigues us for whatever reason. And I'll let you have honors as well. Who's your stack?
So you might have gotten the point already, but I like Tampa Bay a lot. Going against Alex Wood. Of course, the team value rating that FantasyLabs is so strong. I love using that. Just at the beginning, just to kind of give me an idea of what the slate's looking like. Right now, they're an 80 for FanDuel, projected to get 4.3 runs. It's a pitcher's park. We've talked about that. That's gonna turn people away, and I think they're gonna flock to Toronto. I foresee a lot of people paying up for the Toronto bats and going down on pitchers tomorrow. And even the Orioles are at 4.5. The Cardinals and Red Sox are up there too. So it's not. I don't think Tampa Bay is going to be on people's radar as much as those other teams. I don't know exactly how I'm going to set the stack up yet, because I like the 1. I like Forsythe. I like the 7. So I don't know. I'm not going 7, 8, 9, 1. I'll tell you that. But I'm going to try to figure out a way to work those guys in. I like Brandon Guyer. Not only because of his first name, and Correa's got 8 Pro Trans too. So I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm big on the Rays tomorrow.
I like it. So my stack is going to be in that same game, just the opposite side. Mm-hmm. I'm going Dodgers. It's a very contrarian stack, I think, tomorrow. Because the things that interest me. All right, so I think that this sort of pricing and just sort of the slate's going to set up, people are going to have ownership on Smiley, and everyone's sort of priced accordingly to Smiley being dominant. Mm-hmm. The Dodgers are projected to score 3.3 runs, which is tied for the lowest in the slate. Smiley is obviously going to be really, really popular, especially on FanDuel, where he's just super, super cheap. So that already intrigues me, where if I can get a team to blow up, not only am I getting value on the stack because they score a lot of runs, but I'm also crushing the most popular pitcher. So you sort of get a double whammy of value on the tournament team. I think the Dodgers have that potential. They went off for 10 runs tonight, even in a pitcher's park. I think they have some bats with a lot of potential. Jock has been down a little bit since his outburst at the beginning of last year in his rookie season, but hit a home run tonight. Thompson, the other Thompson, Trace Thompson, not the Clay Thompson that's dominating NBA, but the Trace Thompson that is dominating the Dodgers.
It's his brother, right?
Yeah, that's a good family, right? He hit a home run tonight. Puig hit well tonight too. So they have a lot of power and a lot of intriguing bats. I get it's a lefty. I get that it's a pitcher's park. I get that Smiley's good. Not going to have a ton of exposure, but I do think that they are a sort of dangerous team for what Smiley's ownership is going to be.
I totally agree. I mean, I like Smiley tomorrow, especially on FanDuel, like you said. But yeah, if you can get the Dodgers to put up an 8 spot or something, it's double whammy. You've got guys going down the leaderboard, and you're flying up it. So, Betsy, but props to you.
Yeah. So I think that's sort of the most interesting stack. Maybe not I don't think it's going to be the best stack. It's not the optimal stack, but I think it is the most interesting stack for me as a tournament player. Okay, let's keep on moving. We got two more cool little quick segments before we end this. The next one's going to be our stat of the day, and we actually, I think, have the same guy, just different stats. I'll let you have honors, and then I'll give my stat on the same dude.
All right, so we're going Josh Donaldson.
Indeed.
For Toronto. We know he's got a bad ISO split, but his salary's moving down. It's dropped 500 in the last 15 days, something like that. So I put together a little trend. Guys who have dropped 500, who have a slugging percentage of at least 550, on a team that's expected to score at least 4.9 runs, which the Jays are, have a positive plus minus of 2.4. So that's what I've got. I mean, I like him tomorrow. I think a lot of people are going to be on him. I think or at least on that team, right? But the trend kind of points you that way anyways.
Yeah, I like that trend a lot. But my stat of the day is on Donaldson as well. So I looked at his advanced stats in the recent ones. He has a hard hit percentage difference of plus 15%. So that means in the last 15 days, he has hit the ball 15% harder than he has in the last year. That is, I think, interesting for any player. But it really stands out when we look at a guy who already crushes the ball. And then if you add 15% onto that with a guy like Donaldson, it always really intrigues me. Anytime you get like a Donaldson or a Trout or a Bryce Harper or Stanton who hits the ball harder, and then you're like, wow, how are they hitting the ball harder? They already hit the ball hard. I think that really stands out even more. So anytime I see something like that, like an elite batter getting even more elite, that's sort of a sign that I probably need to buy into that. So I think we're both on Donaldson here. Salary decrease, potential lower ownership because of the right-handedness, but still crushing the ball. I think it's a good spot to take Donaldson tomorrow.
Yeah, and staying in the advanced stats for him. I mean, his fly ball percentage is up too, and his line drive percentage is up a small tick. But that means his ground balls are down, and that you don't score points on ground balls, right? 47% of what he hits is a fly ball. I'll take that all day, especially when you couple it with the increased distance and the hard hit percentage and the exit velocity too. I mean, he's the full package tomorrow.
Yeah. He's a great play tomorrow for sure. Okay, well, let's end it with a bold call of the day. Go for it.
All right. So I'm on Tampa Bay tomorrow. They're going to score at least 10 runs, and a stack of those of the Rays takes down a GPP. And all of it can happen in a pitcher's park, man. What do you think?
10 runs in a pitcher's park and takes.
Yeah, but if you take 9, if they get 9, are you gonna give me credit on that?
Nope, they got to get 10. If you're gonna be bold and go for double digits, I got to hold you to that, man.
Maybe I'll bump it up to 15.
Yeah, no, that would be real bold. Yeah, no, I like that call a lot. It's bold. I always appreciate when people come on the pod, and I ask them to give me a bold call, and they go bold. I respect it. My bold call is that Smiley gets beat up tomorrow. I said that I think the Dodgers potentially could give him problems, and maybe it's more sort of wishful thinking that they give him problems just because I'm going to take them in tournaments. I'm going to stack them against Smiley, and I hope that they do because that'll be good for me. But I do think it's sort of an interesting spot. The Dodgers who crushed the ball tonight against Smiley, who's been playing really well. But he has some signs of he's thrown a little bit softer lately. I'm not sure that matters. He's still, an elite strikeout guy. But There's just a couple like cracks, little slivers that make me think there's some potential there for the Dodgers. So if you're gonna go bold, I'm gonna go bold. So Smiley's getting beat up.
All right, maybe both of them happen.
Yeah, maybe we could have like a 10-11 game or something.
Yeah, totally.
That'd be great. So maybe just stack that game. I think.
Yeah, but stay away from Smiley if that's the case.
Yeah, stack the game and take
Fernandez.
I like it. Yeah.
You can fit that with the Dodgers prices. You can fit that.
Exactly. Wow. We just made your lineups for you and made money for you.
You're welcome, everyone.
Wow. All right. Well, Brandon, thanks. Great pod. Great first pod. Your official FantasyLabs podcaster. How does it feel? You made it through your first one.
I have Twitter open, and I'm getting ready to change my my description.
Yeah. I guess you should probably expect a blue check mark from Twitter pretty soon once that gets in your bio.
I've had that for a while, man. But
yeah, I hear you.
Not for this. Not for this.
I hear you. Well, yeah, thanks for joining us. And everyone, thanks for listening. We hope you guys have success tomorrow. As always, definitely check out John's breakdown in the morning for the full slate of games, all 15 games. And obviously, we will wish you luck in the main slate. But Brandon, thanks for joining us. We'll have you back on soon.
Cool. Thanks a lot.
All right. Good luck, everyone. See ya.